lovely musicians. Welcome to Music with Cass. On today's episode, we are going to learn how to identify perfect and major intervals. There are 3 perfect intervals: perfect fourths, perfect fifths, and perfect eighths, or perfect octaves. The best way to identify intervals is to compare them to popular songs that you may know. Today we are going to be using a C major scale to identify our intervals. A perfect fourth on the C major scale is C to F. The best way to identify a perfect fourth is through either Amazing Grace, Amazing Grace, or through Here Comes the Bride. Here comes the bride, all dressed in white. The next perfect interval is a perfect fifth. A perfect fifth in the C major scale is C to G. The best way to identify a perfect fifth is with Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. The last interval is a perfect eighth or perfect octave. The reason why it's called a perfect octave is because a perfect eighth interval is between a note and that same note an octave above or below. So in the key of C, a perfect octave is C to C. The best way to identify this interval is with Somewhere Over the Rainbow from The Wizard of Oz. Somewhere over the rainbow. Now that you know how to hear the difference between the perfect octaves, I'm going to play a couple for you. I want you to get something that you can use to write down your answers. I will play each interval for you twice, and then I will reveal it to you. Here is your first interval. Next interval. Next interval. Next interval. Next interval. Here is your last interval. Next, we'll move on to major intervals. There are 4 major intervals: major second, major third, major sixth, and major seventh. We will go back to using the C major scale in order to identify our major intervals. A major second on the C major scale is C to D. The best way to identify this interval is with Happy Birthday. Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you. A major third at a C major scale is C to E. 2 ways to identify this interval are Do, Re, Mi from The Sound of Music. Do, a deer, a female deer. Or you can think of it as a reverse doorbell. A major 6 interval on a C major scale is C to A. 2 ways to identify a major 6 is either through the NBC jingle or with My Bonnie Went Over the Ocean. My Bonnie went over the ocean. Last major interval, major 7th on a C major scale, is C to B. You can think of this as two different things. You can either use Take On Me. Take on me. Or you can just think of it as, that sounds pretty nasty. Now that you know all of the major intervals, we will test them. I will play each interval for you twice, and I want you to write them down. Here's your first interval. Next interval. Next interval. Next interval. Next interval. Next interval. Next interval. Finally, here's your last interval. Now that you know how to identify all perfect and major intervals, try practicing them more at home. You can do this by either listening for them, or if you have a piano, you can try playing them. That concludes today's episode of Music with Cass. I hope you enjoyed!